Hey beauty, welcome back to Behind the Lash with Tammy. I'm Tammy, lash artist, educator, and founder of Beauty by Tammy. And today we're diving into the topic that every lash artist cares about, but very few people actually explain: retention. Those magical 2 seconds where the adhesive, the environment, and your technique all need to work together or everything falls apart. Over the past decade, from working with clients, training students, and testing adhesives from many manufacturers, I've learned that retention is never just one thing. And honestly, some of the things that finally gave my clients 6 to 8 weeks of retention were things no one taught me in any one course. Today, I'm sharing the truth about lash retention no one told me, so you can stop guessing, stop stressing, and start getting the results your clients rave about. Let's get into it. I know this is an amazing episode. I feel so good about it already because I know that the number one issue and the number one reason clients come back to you is your retention. Your retention will make or break your business. That is the reason why today's topic is so important. I chose it as the first topic I want to get into and help other lash artists. The reason why lash artists get such a bad rap about lash extensions, that it's such a high-end service and yet the lashes don't last, and clients just don't feel like they got the service that they purchased. When the service doesn't live up to their expectations, that causes lash extensions to have a bad reputation. As lash artists, we owe it to ourselves, we owe it to the industry to really figure that out. It's very difficult to run a lash studio, to be a lash artist, if you're having retention issues, right? The first real problem is that lash artists always think it's about the adhesive. The poor adhesive gets such a bad rap. We blame ourselves. We blame the adhesive. We think, oh my goodness, this is not the right adhesive, or this is not a good adhesive. What's wrong with the adhesive? We are so quick to just say, I want to throw this in the garbage. The problem is they're only half right. Like, yes, it could be the adhesive, but usually it's the environment. Retention is 70% environment and 30% technique. Retention is something that you can learn. If you've received proper certification to be a lash artist, your trainer would have gone over how to get excellent retention so that you can retain your clients. No one is going to pay for a high-end service if the lashes don't last. In my trainings, I always tell my students, your clients, they want beautiful lashes. They want it to be safe at a price that they're willing to pay, and the lashes have to last. When I say they have to last, I'm on the assumption that clients have to return every 3 weeks for what we call a fill or a touch-up appointment. They have to actually look good for 3 weeks while they're out there. Anybody can make a full set look good. When they first open their eyes, the extensions are nice and full. Of course, they look great. A sign of a great lash artist is how do they look week after week. The first week, they're going to look amazing because they're nice and full. The second week, they will have had some shedding. So now it looks a little bit less full, but it still looks good. Then the third week, of course, now they're nice and light, but they still look good. Your lashes should still retain its shape and its style. They should just look like they're lighter. The set gets lighter as your client wears it week after week. That is a sign of a good lash artist. There should not be holes in the lashes, making them look uneven. One side is crazy and the other, they look like cyclops. Your clients are not going to come back. You're going to lose them. That's why this episode is so important. We don't want to blame the adhesive because the adhesive is created by all these scientists to work within a range, within a temperature range and within a humidity range. What that means is that the adhesive then gives you that workability because you want the adhesive to cure. If you understand that adhesives cure with humidity, then you know that if the humidity is higher, your adhesive is going to cure faster. If your humidity is lower, then your adhesive will dry slower. That's why there's a humidity range. Same thing with the temperature. If the environment is too cold, your adhesive will not perform properly. If it's too hot, it will also not perform properly. There is that range the scientists have created so that you have that workability. When you pick up that drop of glue, it gives you that few seconds to work with. You pick up the glue, it doesn't cure, don't cure. You place it on the lash. When that adhesive attaches the natural lash to the extension, that's when it cures. So having that few seconds, that's the workability that I'm talking about. You have got to get your environment right. You must have a hygrometer, and that gives you your temperature and humidity reading. When you're working with your client, you can figure out what is the most optimum range for your environment. Once you know what your optimum range is, you have to make a note of that down and try to recreate that every time before your client comes into your appointment. By the time she's there, it's already too late. Yes, you can make minor adjustments, but really you should have your environment set up before your client even enters into your lash studio. I'm going to give you my little secret sauce, okay? So if you have a pen and paper ready and taking notes, that's great. But if you're driving or running errands and listening to this podcast, be sure to come back and take some notes because I'm going to give you my secret sauce. The adhesive works best in an environment of 19 degrees, 24 degrees, with 21 degrees Celsius as the optimum temperature. The adhesive works best in a humidity range 45 to 55, okay, with a 52% optimum range. That is the general range I have found that works really, really well with most adhesives. Of course, adhesives are created just like a recipe. Different adhesives have different recipes, although the main ingredients are generally the same. You should test your adhesive before a paying client so that you know all of your numbers and that you can create that environment consistently every single time. Okay? Earlier, I mentioned that you should get proper training with adhesives. Your trainer should have also talked about technique. They should have trained you on how much glue to pick up, because a lot of times we don't use enough glue. We hear a lot in social media, use very little glue or don't use too much glue. Yes, in lash competitions, you shouldn't use too much glue, but this is real life clientele. You have a business to run and you want your clients coming back. You really need to pick up enough glue to make that extension attach and last for 3 weeks. I always say pick up a good amount of glue, but not too much so that you have stickies, but enough that you can make that extension last for 3 weeks. That extension needs to look good and last for 3 weeks. Now we're going to move on to the biggest retention mistakes no one talks about. Earlier, I talked about humidity and how it's important to have your environment to be a very specific range. Now, if your humidity is too high, then we have something called the humidity shock problem. It's going to cure too fast. What does that mean? It means that when you pick up your dot of glue and you are trying to bring it over to attach the extension to the natural lash, that little dot of glue is already curing. It's already half cured. You don't want that. You want it to not cure as you bring your dot of glue over. Then when you attach, that's when you want it to cure. So really watch your humidity. And this also applies to using nano misters. I know nano misters have always been a bit controversial. To nano mist or not nano mist? That is the question. And I am a fan of nano misting. Nano misting is really important here in Canada. We're very cold sometimes and very, very dry in the winter. So my humidifier is always going, and sometimes even in the fall and spring. It's really just the summertime that I don't need it when it's high humidity here. I lash in Ontario, and it definitely is very, very dry and low humidity, at least in my area. Nano misting is important. It's good to have a nano mister so that you have it ready when it's dry, or you just need to cure that first layer of glue, you really need that nano mister as a tool. But if you are overusing the nano misting, you can actually shock cure the glue as well. So you have to play around and see how much you can use your nano misting. Again, that is also dependent on your environment. You really have to rely on your hygrometer to give you your readings. Earlier, I mentioned using too much or too little adhesive. We have something called the invisible sweet spot. You really have to do a lot of practicing on how much glue to pick up, right? If you're picking up a bigger drop of glue, it's going to take longer to cure. If you pick up a smaller drop of glue, then it's going to cure quicker. You really need to play around with what we call the invisible sweet spot. You got to know how much glue to pick up. I always pick up a little ball, and if it's too big, I put it back into the adhesive dots. You really need to learn how much glue to pick up. That's going to really help you when you're lashing. A really big myth is that, oh, I'll just use a faster drying glue. Why faster drying is not always better? It's because you have to match your adhesive speed to your skill. If you're a beginner, it would bode you well to use a slower drying glue. When I say slow, all our glues now, they work really well. They're formulated better. It would give you at least a 2 to 3 second or 1 to 2 second glue that would be working really well for you. I know that there are half a second glues out there or super fast drying glues out there. You as a beginner should not be using that because you're going to have retention problems with your clients if you're using a glue that's too fast for your skill. As you move up, and you get more training, you get more advanced, you practice and you get faster, or you're doing volume and mega volume, which are more advanced lashing skills, that's when you can use a faster drying or even a clear glue. The secret role of temperature and making micro adjustments is so important. You really need to know what is the perfect temperature and humidity your environment works in. A little tip I like to give is to ensure you have a humidifier or a mini heater in your room. You can make these little tiny adjustments. Our weather here fluctuates, so my environment, my lashing studio fluctuates all the time. I lash in Ontario, Canada, and we have 4 seasons, and even within each season, we have those huge fluctuations in that one season. It's truly really crazy to predict, and you could drive yourself crazy trying to predict the environment. The weather is the weather. There's nothing we can do about the weather. What you can do now that you have the knowledge is you already know what works best, what's optimum range, what's your optimum numbers for your studio. So now you can recreate that. Everybody always focuses on humidity, but really temperature is also a great adjuster. If you feel like, what's wrong with my environment today? My humidifier is going, everything is exactly what I always do. What is going on with the adhesive today? You have to remember the adhesive did not change. It's still the same glue inside that bottle. What changed? Your environment, right? So you need to tweak your environment. Turn on the humidifier, turn down the humidifier, or maybe increase the temperature in your room a little bit by using a little heater to help you create that environment. Sometimes you just have to crank up the temperature a little bit, and that should do the trick. Let me know if you've tried that trick and you love it. I would love to hear what you think about temperature too, because everybody talks about humidity, but not everybody talks about temperature. Moving on to the truth about adhesives. These are the lessons I learned the hard way. As a beginner, I bought every single brand of adhesive you can try. I would ask around, ask everybody, what adhesive are you using? Which one worked for you? I would hear about this one is the holy grail, and I would go buy that one. If you name it, I probably tried it. What I figured was that after all my experimenting with all the different adhesives, even the most expensive adhesives weren't enough if you didn't give the adhesive the proper environment to work. And now you have that knowledge just like I did. What nobody tells you is that not every adhesive is created equal. The adhesive has to be stable, meaning it needs to work in a wide-ranging environment. The vapors have to be low because you don't want the vapors to be high fumes burning the client's eyes. They should be low to medium fumes. They should not be high fumes because that would really irritate your client during the service. And also curing. Nobody talks about the curing process. In the beginning, nobody taught me how important it was to allow the lashes to properly cure. So after I took some advanced training with Doug Schoon, he is an expert with adhesives. He's worked in the nail industry and has a deep understanding of nail glue. And Lash glue is the baby version of nail glue. And he said that, all the research was extensively done on nail glue. So he knows the science of the glues. And when I took his course, he was able to explain that the glues cures in layers. Within the first 5 minutes, the first layer of glue is already cured. Okay. That's why it's a little bit hard. You can cure it with a nanomister or just allow the full 5 minutes to cure that first layer of glue. After that first 5 minutes is over, the curing of the glue slows down to a halt, slows down to the point where now it's going to take the rest of the time. Like it's going to take up to 24 hours for the rest of that glue to completely cure. That's why it's my recommendation to tell clients not to get the lashes wet. I know that there's been a lot of talk in the past about you can wash the lashes right away. The answer to that is that it depends on your glue. Every manufacturer is different, just like cooking in a recipe. Some manufacturers say you've got to wait at least 4 hours before the lashes can get wet. Others say you've got to wait 24 hours. It doesn't mean that the adhesive is bad just because it takes longer for that adhesive to cure. Washing the lashes after immediately within 5 minutes to reduce the sensitivity for clients is really the reasoning behind the washing the lashes after the service trend. I personally, from experience, have tried that, and then all of the lashes fell off. So really, I learned the hard way. I had to fix that client's lashes, and I definitely didn't do that after that. Now, I recommend my clients to wait at least 24 hours to allow the glue to fully cure, and we never had any retention issues with that client after that. Super sorry to that poor client who I washed their lashes. I was following a trend. And so really, I don't recommend it, okay? The most important thing you need to remember is having the wrong environment can sabotage even the best adhesive. You can buy the most expensive designer adhesive in the market, and if you have a bad environment, you're going to have retention issues. So get your environment right and get your skill right. That's why I created Passion and Vision. Because I was forced to work all 4 seasons in Canada, I had to find an adhesive that worked really in a wide-ranging environment and to deal with all the ups and downs and the different changing weathers. That was the reason why Passion and Vision was born. I felt that it was important to give my students an adhesive that was reliable, that wouldn't let them down. So back in 2018, I knew K-beauty. I was ahead of the K-beauty trend. I knew after my research that the 2 best places to have your adhesives manufactured is Korea or Japan. I chose Korea because that is the safest place to have your adhesives manufactured. They use the highest quality ingredients. I knew that I wanted to create an adhesive that was using the minimal ingredients required to work. I wanted a clean adhesive. I didn't want it to have filler ingredients. Of course, that meant it would be a higher quality adhesive and it would cost more to manufacture. We needed to tweak the recipe so that it would perform in a wide-ranging environment. Back then, when I first started lashing, the adhesives weren't that great and they just needed a lot of humidity to work. A lot of times you would attach the extension and it would just fall off. We are in an era where we've created really, really good adhesives I love my passion and my vision. I named them that because I really truly believe that they will take you far. If you haven't given them a try, you can definitely find them on my website. Moving on to retention wins in my studio. I want to share a couple of client stories, real life client stories where we had retention issues or things happened. They're just so crazy that I need to share with you, and maybe some of you have gone through this. I had one client who all of a sudden started shedding so much. She had been a client for several years, so it wasn't a new client, but all of a sudden she was shedding so fast. She'd come back for her touch-up, her fill appointment, have all new lashes come through, and we couldn't figure out what was going on. We went through her day. I said, tell me what you've changed in your day, because I didn't change and my adhesive didn't change, but something you did must have changed. We had to really do a deep dive into her day at home, at work. I said, what are you doing differently? Because we need to figure this out. We figured out that she was doubling up on her vitamins because she wanted to grow her hair, her nails. She was taking extra biotin and thought it was just good to double up on her vitamins. That was causing fast shedding. She was going through the natural lash shedding cycle very, very quickly. I asked her, did you consult your doctor before deciding to double up on your supplements? She said no. I said, you really should speak with your doctor before making decisions like that, because I can't advise you. You should consult your doctor for a proper protocol. She came back and she said, I spoke with my doctor. I no longer am doubling up on my vitamins. And guess what? Her natural shedding went back to normal. So it really was doubling up on those supplements that caused her to shed so quickly. Another client, she started having retention issues out of nowhere as well. I thought, what's going on? What did you change in your routine? So we went through her makeup and skincare, and sure enough, she was using a different eye cream. Another client was using a different makeup, primer, anything that is around the eyes. We know you have to avoid oily products. Sometimes there are ingredients in certain makeup or in certain skincare that you just can't use when you have eyelash extensions, because we need to use the proper products to properly cleanse the eye area, especially if you're wearing lash extensions. I always recommend that it's okay to use eyeshadow as makeup. Of course, you just have to test what products in your makeup kit you can still use. You can usually pinpoint if a client introduced a new product into their makeup or skincare routine and figure out that's the reason behind the retention issues. The final client, this is going to be a crazy story. She changed up her shampoo and conditioner. The conditioner had this coating. It coated the natural lashes as well as the extensions and made it slippery. So when I lashed her, the extensions would slide off. This is the reason why it's so important to make sure that your lash prep is on point. Always make sure your clients have clean lashes and you do the proper lash prep. She had this conditioner. I think it was Bed. It was such a long time ago. That conditioner caused retention problems. Once she switched back to her normal conditioner, problem went away. I just share some of these real life stories because they happened to me. They really are real. The moral of the lesson is that if you are strong in your skills and knowledge and you know how to guarantee retention, when clients come back with issues, you know it's something that they did. Something that they changed in their routine that is causing that poor bond. I always joke that the adhesive can and will bond skin together. You can bond someone's eyes shut. So it will 100% attach. If it doesn't, there's a reason why, and you need to figure out what that reason why is. Now I'm going to give you the retention checklist that everybody needs to know. These are my tips and tricks, things that have worked for me. All of my secrets I'm going to give to you. The perfect pickup amount. So make sure you pick up enough glue. Earlier, we talked about playing around, practicing. Pick up the perfect amount of glue that your extension can attach and will last for 3 weeks. The sweet spot in the humidity range. We talked about the environment, making sure you know what's optimum, making a note of that optimum range, and recreating that before your client enters your lash studio. How to keep your adhesive fresh during appointments. It's important to keep it out of direct sunlight, out of heat. You have to keep the adhesive cap closed. You need to clean your adhesive nozzle. A lot of beginners are not even taught that when you use your glue and you drop that adhesive drop on your jadestone or your glue ring, you have to look to the nozzle to see if you have any adhesive bubbles coming through the nozzle. If you do, you need to burp, like squeeze the bottle, and then use an adhesive wipe to clean the nozzle before you place the glue cap back on. If you do not do that, you risk gluing your cap to your adhesive nozzle. And if you're trying to open it after your adhesive nozzle is glued to your cap, you will twist and break off your nozzle by accident. You don't want to do that. So to avoid that, make sure you burp and clean your adhesive nozzle. That's how you keep your adhesive fresh. You do not need to keep it in the freezer. You do not need to keep it in the refrigerator. It is fine. In your lash studio, you don't need a fancy container. As long as you keep it out of direct sunlight, if you're going through one adhesive bottle a month, if you're a full-time lash artist, or if you're a part-time lash artist, up to 8 weeks of an open bottle is fine. You can just keep it in your lash cart, in your lash tray, as long as it's avoiding heat and out of direct sunlight. Lash prep products that I avoid and why. I don't really use primer. I do carry a pre-treatment, and that's because my pre-treatment contains vitamin C, but I don't even use that all the time. If your clients are coming with clean lashes, you do not need to use a primer because most primers contain alcohol, and that's very drying for the skin, drying around the eye area. I know the idea is to dry the lashes, to sanitize the lashes. If they're coming to your appointment with makeup-free clean lashes, that should be fine. The most important thing is that they have clean lashes and then you do a lash prep. That doesn't mean you clean the lashes. They should come with clean lashes. And then you just do a quick lash prep to ensure that the lashes are ready to be attaching to the extensions. I would recommend using fewer dips. So if you're dipping an extension and then attaching, no more than, let's say you didn't pick up enough glue, no more than 2 dips. You dip it twice and then you put it on the natural lash. If you didn't get the right amount of glue, you need to discard that extension because now you have layers and layers of glue from when you dipped multiple times. That is going to affect your retention. You will get better results with fewer dips. The last tip is the client aftercare. This is such an important step that no one explains properly. You must advise your clients on lash aftercare because I always explained to my clients that you see me once every 3 weeks, and of course, I'm going to give you amazing lashes, but the real retention is up to you and how well you take care of your lashes after you see me. I really want to end off with giving you some encouragement. For those who feel like they're doing everything wrong, retention issues does not mean that you're bad at this. Every artist goes through this phase. This is what I call the beginner phase. You have to push past this beginner phase, right? To become the expert that you're meant to become later on. It's not you. Everything I talked about, it's about the technique, the knowledge, the environment. All of these are pieces to the puzzle of what we call retention. As you're building your mastery, don't focus on doing it perfectly. There is no such thing as perfection. Don't get caught up in that because I am a reformed perfectionist myself, and that is something that I am constantly fighting, so I understand you. Don't be so hard on yourself. I hope today's episode reminded you of something important. Retention isn't magic, luck, or some secret skill everyone else knows but you. It's a science, and once you understand what actually affects your adhesive, everything changes. If this episode helped you, it would mean the world if you followed the show, left a review, or shared it with another lash artist who needs to hear this message. Thank you for spending this time with me. Until next time, keep creating beautiful work and believe in yourself a little more today than you did yesterday. This podcast is for educational purposes only and is not a substitute for hands-on professional lash training. Please always follow your local regulations and take certified lash courses before working on clients. Everything I share is based on my personal experience as a lash artist and educator.